The morning sun painted golden streaks across the hospital corridor as Kate walked slowly toward room 314. Her footsteps echoed softly on the polished floor, each step feeling heavier than the last. She clutched a small bouquet of white roses in her trembling hands, the same flowers William had brought her on their first date 37 years ago. Kate's reflection caught her eye in the window as she passed. Her silver hair was neatly combed, her blue cardigan carefully chosen, but her eyes told the story of sleepless nights and endless worry. At 62, she had weathered many storms in life, but nothing had prepared her for this moment. William lay in the bed, connected to machines that beeped quietly in the background. His once strong frame looked fragile under the white hospital sheets. The man who had built their home with his own hands, who had carried her over the threshold on their wedding day, who had stayed up all night when their children were sick, now needed help just to breathe. "Good morning, my love," Kate whispered as she entered the room. She placed the roses in a vase by his bedside and gently took his hand. His fingers, which had held hers through decades of joy and sorrow, felt cold and thin. William's eyes fluttered open at the sound of her voice. Even in his weakened state, his face lit up when he saw her. "Katie," he said softly, using the nickname he had given her when they were young. "You came early today." "I couldn't sleep," she admitted, settling into the familiar chair beside his bed. "I kept thinking about our garden. The roses are blooming beautifully this year. You would love to see them." They had planted that garden together in the spring of 1987, the year after they bought their little house on Maple Street. Every weekend, they would work side by side, their hands dirty with soil, planning where each flower would grow. The garden had grown with their love, expanding over the years as they added new sections for vegetables, herbs, and a small greenhouse where William grew orchids. "Tell me about them," William said, his voice barely above a whisper. Kate squeezed his hand gently and began to describe each bloom, each new growth, painting pictures with her words of the garden they had nurtured together. As she spoke, her mind wandered to the day they first met. It was autumn 1985, and she had been rushing to catch a bus after her shift at the local library. Her arms were full of books she was taking home to read, and she hadn't noticed the puddle near the bus stop. When she stepped in it, her books went flying, pages fluttering in the wind like confused birds. William had been walking by on his way home from his job at the construction company. Without hesitation, he had rushed to help her gather the scattered books, chasing down pages that had blown across the sidewalk. His work clothes were dusty, his boots heavy with mud, but his smile was warm and genuine. "Looks like you could use some help," he had said, handing her a water-damaged copy of Pride and Prejudice. "I'm so clumsy," Kate had replied, embarrassed by the mess. "No," William had said firmly. "You're just someone who cares enough about books to carry too many at once. That's admirable." That simple kindness had been the beginning of everything. They had talked at the bus stop until 3 buses came and went. Kate had learned that William loved to read too, though he preferred history and biographies to her beloved novels. He had learned that she dreamed of writing stories of her own someday, but was too afraid to try. "You're thinking about the books again," William said, pulling her back to the present. Even after all these years, he could read her thoughts. Kate smiled through the tears she hadn't realized were falling. "How did you know?" "You get that faraway look in your eyes, the same one you had when you used to write your stories at the kitchen table." William's breathing was labored, but his voice carried the warmth she had fallen in love with. Kate had indeed written stories, hundreds of them over the years. Short tales about ordinary people finding extraordinary love, about families overcoming hardships, about the small miracles that happened in everyday life. William had been her first and most devoted reader, offering encouragement even when rejection letters piled up on their dining room table. "Mr. Thompson," a gentle voice interrupted their memories. Dr. Sarah Chun entered the room with a kind smile and a clipboard in her hands. She had been caring for William for the past 6 months, and Kate had grown to appreciate her honest but compassionate approach. Good morning, Doctor, Kate said, rising from her chair. Please sit, Dr. Chen said softly. She pulled up another chair and sat down facing both of them. I want to talk to you both about William's condition. The room seemed to grow quieter, as if even the machines were holding their breath. Kate felt William's grip on her hand tighten slightly. The tests from yesterday show that the cancer has spread more quickly than we hoped, Dr. Chen continued gently. We've tried everything we can, but William's body is getting tired of fighting. Kate had known this day would come. They both had. When William was first diagnosed with pancreatic cancer 8 months ago, the doctors had been cautiously optimistic. Surgery, chemotherapy, radiation, they had tried everything. William had fought bravely through each treatment, never complaining even when the medicine made him sick, even when he lost his thick brown hair, even when simple tasks like climbing stairs became impossible. How long? William asked quietly. Dr. Chen looked at them both with compassionate eyes. It's difficult to say exactly, but I think we're looking at days rather than weeks. I'm so sorry. The words hung in the air like a thundercloud. Kate felt the world tilt slightly, as if gravity had shifted. Days. After 37 years of marriage, of shared breakfasts, and good-night kisses, of arguments that ended in laughter, and dreams that grew into reality, they had only days left. What do we need to do? Kate asked, her voice steadier than she felt. We can make him as comfortable as possible, Dr. Chen explained. We can increase his pain medication and focus on ensuring he's not suffering. You can take him home if you'd like, or he can stay here. Whatever feels right to you both. Kate looked at William, searching his face for guidance. They had always made important decisions together, from choosing their first apartment to deciding whether to have children. They had tried for years, but never were blessed with any, from career changes to vacation destinations. I want to go home, William said softly. I want to see our garden one more time. Kate nodded, tears flowing freely now. Then, we'll go home. The next few hours passed in a blur of paperwork and phone calls. Kate contacted their closest friends and William's younger brother James, who lived across the country. Everyone wanted to come immediately, but William asked for just a day or two of quiet time first. I want to remember us, he explained to Kate as they waited for the ambulance to take them home. Just us in our house with our memories. The ride home was surprisingly peaceful. William dozed in the medical transport bed, while Kate sat beside him, watching familiar streets pass by the window. She saw Mrs. Patterson watering her flowers next door, Mr. Martinez walking his old golden retriever, the children from down the street riding their bicycles in lazy circles. Life was continuing all around them, normal and unchanged while their world was ending. When they arrived at the little house on Maple Street, Kate felt a rush of emotion. The yellow front door she had painted just last spring, the mailbox William had installed with their last name carefully painted in blue letters, the small front porch where they had spent countless evenings watching the sunset. It all looked the same, but everything was different now. The medical team helped William into the hospital bed they had set up in their living room. Kate had wanted him to be able to see their garden through the large picture window, and the afternoon light streaming through painted everything in warm, golden tones. It's perfect, William said as he settled into the bed. From where he lay, he could see the rose bushes heavy with blooms, the vegetable garden where tomatoes were just beginning to ripen, and the small greenhouse where his precious orchids grew. After the medical team left, Kate sat beside him in the same chair she had brought from the hospital. The house felt different with the medical equipment, but it still smelled like home, like the lavender soap she used, the coffee William made every morning, and the faint scent of roses drifting through the open window. Do you remember when we first moved in here? William asked. Kate smiled at the memory. We had that terrible green couch from your bachelor apartment, and exactly one pot to cook with. And you insisted on hanging curtains before we even unpacked the dishes. A house isn't a home without proper curtains, Kate said, repeating what her mother had always told her. They had been so young then, so full of plans and dreams. They were going to have 3 children and a dog. William was going to start his own construction company, and Kate was going to become a published author. They would travel to Europe for their 10th anniversary and buy a bigger house when their family grew. Some dreams had come true. William had indeed started his own successful construction company, building beautiful homes throughout their small town. Kate had published a collection of short stories when she was 45, a small print run that had sold mostly to friends and neighbors, but it had fulfilled a lifelong dream. Some dreams had not come true. The children they had hoped for never came, despite years of trying and hoping and praying. They had considered adoption, but ultimately decided they were complete as they were. They had traveled to Ireland instead of Europe for their 10th anniversary and loved their little house too much to ever want a bigger one. As the afternoon faded into evening, Kate made William's favorite soup, chicken, and rice with extra vegetables from their garden. He managed a few spoonfuls before growing tired. She helped him take his medications and adjusted his pillows until he was comfortable. "Kate," William said as she was about to turn off the bedside lamp. "Yes, my love. I need you to know something." His voice was serious, the way it got when he was about to say something important. Kate sat back down and took his hand. "These have been the best 37 years of my life," he continued. "Every morning I woke up grateful that you chose me. Every day has been a gift because I got to spend it with you." Kate's tears came freely now. "William, don't talk like I need to say this," he interrupted gently. "I need you to know that if I could choose any life, any story to live, I would choose this one again. I would choose you again every time." Kate leaned forward and kissed his forehead, tasting the salt of her own tears. "I love you," she whispered. "I have loved you since that day with the books, and I will love you forever." As William drifted off to sleep, Kate sat watching him breathe, memorizing every detail of his face. The morning crow's feet that appeared when he smiled, the small scar on his chin from a childhood accident, the way his hair curled slightly behind his ears. She thought about all the ordinary moments that had made up their extraordinary life together. Tuesday morning breakfasts, Sunday afternoon naps, holding hands during scary movies, the way he hummed while doing dishes. Outside their window, the garden settled into evening quiet. The roses released their fragrance into the cooling air, and the first stars appeared in the darkening sky. Kate pulled a blanket over her shoulders and settled in for what she somehow knew would be one of their last nights together. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, difficult conversations, and the beginning of goodbye. But tonight, they were home together, surrounded by the life they had built and the love that had sustained them through everything. Tonight, that was enough. The next morning arrived gently, with soft sunlight filtering through the bedroom curtains and the sound of birds singing in their garden. Kate had spent the night dozing in the chair beside William's bed, waking every few hours to check on his breathing and adjust his covers. When she opened her eyes properly, she found him already awake, watching her with a tender expression. "You should have slept in our bed," William said softly. "I wanted to be close to you," Kate replied, stretching her stiff neck. "Besides, you know I can't sleep without your snoring." William chuckled weakly. "I don't snore." "Oh, my dear husband, you most certainly do. Like a gentle bear." Kate stood and kissed his cheek. Coffee. This had been their routine for decades. Every morning, Kate would make coffee while William showered and dressed for work. She would pack his lunch, and he would read her interesting bits from the newspaper. Even on weekends, they maintained this rhythm of morning togetherness before starting their day. Now, Kate went through the motions alone, grinding the beans William preferred, using the coffee maker they had received as a wedding gift, and somehow never replaced. The familiar ritual brought comfort, even as her heart ached with the knowledge that soon there would be no one to share morning coffee with. She returned to the living room with 2 mugs, though she knew William would only manage a few sips. His appetite had been declining for weeks, and even his favorite foods had become difficult for him to enjoy. "The roses look particularly beautiful this morning," William observed, looking out the window. "The yellow ones are finally blooming." Kate followed his gaze to the climbing rose bush they had planted 5 years ago. It had struggled the first few seasons, and they had nearly given up on it. But William had insisted on giving it one more chance, adding special fertilizer and moving it to a sunnier spot. This year, it had finally rewarded their patience with dozens of butter-yellow blooms. "You never gave up on that rose," Kate said. "Just like you never gave up on anything important. Or anyone," William added meaningfully. Kate remembered the first year of their marriage, when she had gone through what her doctor called a difficult period. She had been sad for months, struggling to find joy in anything, even sleeping through entire days. William had never pushed or criticized. Instead, he had simply held her when she needed holding and given her space when she needed space. He had taken over the household tasks without complaint and had brought her small gifts, a single flower from their garden, a book he thought she might like, a cup of tea made just the way she preferred. "I should call James," Kate said, thinking of William's brother. "Not yet," William replied. "Let's have today just us. He can come tomorrow." Kate understood. James was wonderful, but he was also William's little brother, and he would bring worry and sadness with him. Today, she wanted to protect the quiet peace they had created in their home. The morning passed slowly and sweetly. Kate read aloud from the book they had been enjoying together, a memoir about a couple who had traveled the world in their retirement. William dozed in and out of sleep, but he smiled at the funny parts and squeezed her hand during the touching moments. Around noon, their neighbor Mrs. Patterson knocked gently on the door. She was carrying a casserole dish and wearing the concerned expression Kate had grown accustomed to seeing on people's faces lately. "I hope I'm not disturbing," Mrs. Patterson said softly. "I just wanted to bring you some lunch and see if there's anything you need." "That's very kind of you, Eleanor," Kate replied, accepting the dish. Mrs. Patterson had been their neighbor for 15 years, and they had shared countless conversations over their adjoining fence. She had watched their garden grow and had celebrated with them when Kate's book was published. "How is William today?" Mrs. Patterson asked, glancing toward the living room where she could see the hospital bed. "He's comfortable," Kate answered honestly. "We're just taking things one moment at a time." Mrs. Patterson nodded knowingly. She had lost her own husband 3 years earlier to a heart attack, a sudden departure that had left her reeling with things unsaid and plans unmade. "If you need anything at all, Mrs. Patterson said, placing a gentle hand on Kate's arm. "Anything at all, you just call me. I can sit with William if you need to run errands, or I can run errands for you. Don't try to do everything alone." After Mrs. Patterson left, Kate sat with the casserole on her lap, overwhelmed by the kindness of people. Over the past few months, their community had rallied around them in ways that surprised and humbled her. Neighbors had offered to mow their lawn, friends from church had brought meals, and William's former employees had stopped by regularly to check on their old boss. "Was that Eleanor?" William asked when she returned to his side. "Yes, she brought us lunch. Tuna casserole, your favorite." William smiled. "She's been making that same casserole for every sick person in the neighborhood for 20 years. I think she has the recipe memorized." They shared small portions of the casserole, and Kate was pleased to see William eat more than he had in days. Food always tasted better when it was made with love, and Mrs. Patterson's casseroles were full of love and care. The afternoon brought a gentle rain that pattered softly against the windows and gave their garden a much-needed drink. Kate and William watched the droplets race down the glass, a simple entertainment that somehow felt profound in its ordinariness. "I've been thinking about our wedding day," William said during a quiet moment. Kate smiled at the memory. They had married in a small ceremony at St. Mary's Church, with just 30 guests and a reception in the church basement. Kate had worn her mother's wedding dress, carefully altered to fit her smaller frame, and William had worn his father's suit, which was slightly too big but made him look distinguished. "It rained that day, too," Kate remembered. "Your mother was so worried about your hair." Kate laughed softly. Her mother had spent an hour that morning styling Kate's hair into an elaborate updo, using enough hairspray to survive a hurricane. When the rain started just as they were leaving for the church, her mother had covered Kate's head with a plastic shower cap, and an umbrella muttering about bad luck and ruined photographs. But you said rain on a wedding day was good luck, Kate continued. It is, William confirmed. 37 years later, I'd say we've been very lucky indeed. Their wedding had been simple, but perfect. Kate's father had walked her down the aisle while her mother dabbed at her eyes with a tissue. William had stood at the altar looking nervous and handsome, his hands clasped behind his back the way he always did when he was anxious. When Kate reached him, he had whispered, "You look beautiful, Katie," and all her own nerves had melted away. They had written their own vows, promising to love each other in sickness and in health, in good times and bad, for richer or poorer, as long as they both lived. "Do you remember what you promised me?" Kate asked now. William nodded slowly. "I promised to love you every day, to make you laugh when you were sad, to hold your hand through whatever life brought us, and to never let you forget how special you are. And you kept every promise," Kate said, tears streaming down her face. "I promised one more thing," William added quietly. Kate searched her memory, trying to recall the exact words from so long ago. "I promised that when the time came for me to go, I would go peacefully, knowing that I had loved you completely and been loved completely in return." The rain continued to fall gently outside their window as they sat together in comfortable silence. Kate thought about all the promises they had made to each other over the years, spoken and unspoken. William had promised to fix the leaky faucet in the kitchen and had spent an entire weekend learning plumbing to keep that promise. Kate had promised to learn to cook his grandmother's apple pie recipe, and she had practiced until she could make it perfectly. They had promised to support each other's dreams, to be patient with each other's flaws, and to never go to bed angry. Some promises had been easy to keep, others had required work and forgiveness and the willingness to try again. As evening approached, Kate helped William take his medications and made him comfortable for the night. His breathing was becoming more labored, and she could see the exhaustion in his eyes, but he insisted on sitting up for a while longer to watch the sunset through their garden window. "Kate," William said as the sky turned pink and gold, "I need to tell you something important." "What is it, my love?" William took her hand in both of his grip surprisingly strong. "I need you to promise me that you'll be okay, that you'll keep living and finding joy." Kate started to protest, but William continued. "I know you, Katie. I know you'll want to stop living when I'm gone. But our love doesn't end when I do. It lives on in you, in the garden we planted together, in the stories you've written, in every person whose life we've touched together." Kate wiped her eyes with her free hand, trying to compose herself enough to respond. "I need you to promise me that you'll keep writing," William continued. "You have so many stories left to tell, so many people who need to hear them. Don't let my leaving be the end of your story." "William, I don't know how to live without you," Kate admitted. "You don't have to live without me," William replied gently. "I'll always be with you. Every time you smell roses, every time you make coffee in the morning, every time you help someone who needs it, I'll be there. Love doesn't die, Katie. People do, but love is eternal." Outside their window, the garden was settling into dusk. The roses were closing their petals for the night, and the first fireflies were beginning to dance among the plants. It was the kind of evening they had shared hundreds of times before, sitting together and watching their little piece of the world transition from day to night. "I promise," Kate said finally. "I promise I'll keep living. But you have to promise me something too." "Anything," William replied. "Promise me you'll wait for me. Someday, when it's my time, promise you'll be there to take my hand again." William smiled, and for a moment, Kate could see the young man who had helped her gather her scattered books all those years ago. "I'll be the first face you see," he promised, "and I'll be carrying white roses." As the night deepened around them, Kate dimmed the lights and settled into her chair beside William's bed. Tomorrow would bring James and difficult decisions and the beginning of their final goodbye. But tonight, they still had each other, still had their quiet love and their shared memories. Kate listened to William's breathing as it gradually steadied into sleep, and She found herself thinking about all the nights they had fallen asleep together over the years. The early years when they would talk until dawn about their dreams and plans. The middle years when they were both too tired from work to do more than kiss goodnight and curl up together. The recent years when sleep came easier and they had learned to appreciate the simple comfort of each other's presence. Tomorrow would be harder, she knew. But tonight, love was still stronger than loss, and that would have to be enough. Kate awoke to the sound of a car door closing in their driveway. Through the morning light filtering into their living room, she could see a familiar figure walking toward their front door. James, William's younger brother, had arrived earlier than expected. She quickly smoothed her hair and checked on William, who was still sleeping peacefully, his breathing shallow but steady. The gentle knock came just as she reached the front door. James stood on the porch holding a small suitcase and wearing the same worried expression he had carried since childhood whenever William was hurt or sick. At 58, James still looked to his older brother for guidance and strength, and seeing William so frail would be difficult for him. "James," Kate said softly, embracing him. "I wasn't expecting you until this afternoon." "I caught an earlier flight," James replied, his voice thick with emotion. "I couldn't wait." "How is he?" Kate led him inside, moving quietly so they wouldn't wake William. "He's comfortable. Yesterday was a good day. We talked a lot, shared some memories. He's been asking for you." James set down his suitcase and looked toward the hospital bed where his brother lay sleeping. The two brothers had always been close despite living on opposite sides of the country. James had moved to California 20 years ago for work, but he and William had maintained their relationship through weekly phone calls and annual visits. "He looks so small," James whispered. Kate nodded, understanding. William had always been the big brother in every sense. Taller, stronger, the one who fixed problems and offered solutions. Seeing him reduced to this fragile version of himself was heartbreaking for everyone who loved him. "Would you like some coffee?" Kate offered. "He'll probably wake up soon, and I know he'll want to see you." They sat in the kitchen, the same room where William and James had spent countless hours during James's visits, talking about everything from sports to business to their memories of growing up. Kate made coffee while James looked out at the garden William and Kate had created together. "He always sent pictures of the roses," James said. "Every year, he'd mail me photos of the garden at different seasons. I have a whole album at home." Kate smiled, picturing William carefully selecting which photos to send, wanting to share their small paradise with his brother. "He's very proud of this place. We both are." "Kate," James began hesitantly, "I need to know. How are you holding up?" "Really?" Kate paused, considering her answer. Everyone had been asking her this question for months, and she had learned to give reassuring responses that didn't worry people. But James deserved honesty. "I'm scared," she admitted. "I'm scared of losing him, scared of being alone, scared of forgetting the sound of his voice or the way he laughs at his own jokes before he tells them. But I'm also grateful for every moment we still have together." James reached across the table and squeezed her hand. "You don't have to do this alone, you know. After he's gone, you'll always have family. You can come stay with us in California, or I can move back here for a while. Whatever you need." Before Kate could respond, they heard William's voice calling softly from the living room. "Is that my little brother I hear?" James's face lit up despite his tears, and he rushed to William's bedside. Kate followed, watching as the two brothers embraced carefully, mindful of the tubes and wires that connected William to his medical equipment. "You made good time," William said, his voice stronger than it had been in days. "I was worried you'd start the party without me," James replied, sitting in the chair Kate had vacated. For the next few hours, Kate busied herself in the kitchen, giving the brothers time alone together. Through the open doorway, she could hear their voices rising and falling, sometimes laughing, sometimes growing quiet and serious. They were working through a lifetime of shared memories, and she knew William needed this time with his brother. She prepared a light lunch, knowing that James would be hungry from traveling and hoping that William might eat a little something. As she worked, she thought about the family dynamics that would shift once William was gone. James would become her primary connection to William's side of the family, and she would become his link to all the memories they had shared growing up. William had often told stories about their childhood together. Their father had died when James was only 12, and William, at 17, had stepped into a parental role, helping their mother raise his younger brother. He had taught James to drive, helped him with homework, and had even worked extra jobs to help pay for James's college education. "He saved my life more than once," James had told Kate during one of his visits years ago. "Not just from physical danger, but from making stupid decisions that would have ruined my future. I owe him everything." Now, as she listened to their conversation, Kate could hear James trying to return that favor, offering comfort and strength to the brother who had always been his protector. Dr. Chin arrived in the early afternoon to check on William's condition. She spoke privately with Kate in the hallway, explaining how to adjust his pain medications and what signs to watch for as his condition continued to decline. "He could have another few days like yesterday," Dr. Chun explained gently, "but his body is working very hard now. The next 24 to 48 hours will probably be critical." Kate nodded, feeling the weight of this knowledge settle on her shoulders. She had known this moment was coming, but having a timeline made it feel suddenly urgent and real. When Dr. Chen left, Kate found William and James looking through a photo album that James had brought from his home in California. It contained pictures spanning decades, their childhood together, William's wedding to Kate, family gatherings, holidays, and milestones. "Look at this one," William was saying, pointing to a picture of himself and James building a treehouse in their backyard when James was about 10 years old. "You were so determined to hammer every nail yourself, even though your aim was terrible." "I still have a scar on my thumb from that project," James laughed. "But it was the best treehouse in the neighborhood." Kate sat down beside them, and William pulled her close with his free arm. James brought pictures of his kids, he said, showing her recent photos of James's twin daughters, now in college. Kate smiled at the photos of Sarah and Emma, two vibrant young women who had inherited their Uncle William's kind eyes and their father's determined chin. They had visited several times over the years, and William had always delighted in spoiling them with gifts and attention during their stays. "They wanted to come," James said quietly, "but I thought maybe it would be too hard." William nodded understandingly. "Tell them I love them. Tell them to remember that life is short and precious, and they should never waste a moment of it." As the afternoon wore on, other visitors began to arrive. Mrs. Patterson stopped by with fresh cookies. Their pastor came to offer prayers and comfort, and several of William's former employees dropped by to pay their respects to a man they had all admired. Each visitor brought stories and memories, painting a picture of a life well lived and a man who had touched many hearts. Kate listened as they shared tales of William's generosity, his humor, his willingness to help anyone in need. A young man named David told about how William had hired him straight out of high school when no one else would give him a chance, and how that opportunity had changed the entire course of his life. "Mr. Thompson didn't just give me a job," David said, his voice emotional. "He taught me how to work hard, how to take pride in what I do, and how to treat people with respect. Everything good in my life started with the chance he gave me." An elderly woman named Margaret shared how William had repaired her porch for free after her husband died, refusing to accept payment despite her protests. "He said neighbors help neighbors," she remembered. "That's just who he was." Each story added another layer to the portrait of the man Kate had been privileged to love for 37 years. She had always known William was special, but hearing how he had quietly touched so many lives filled her heart with pride, even as it broke with grief. By evening, the last of the visitors had gone home, leaving Kate, William, and James alone together. William was visibly tired from the day's interactions, but his eyes were bright with satisfaction. "That was good," he said softly. "I'm glad I got to see everyone." Kate helped him take his evening medications while James prepared a light dinner they could all share. The three of them ate together in companionable silence, each lost in their own thoughts about the day and what lay ahead. As night fell, James insisted on taking the first shift sitting with William so that Kate could get some proper rest in their bedroom. She protested weakly, but William encouraged her to go. "You need sleep, Katie," he said gently. "Tomorrow might be difficult." Kate kissed him goodnight and went to their bedroom for the first time in 3 days. The room felt strange and empty without William's presence, but she was grateful for the chance to shower and change clothes properly. As she lay in their bed, surrounded by the familiar sense of their shared life, she could hear the soft murmur of the brothers' voices from the living room. They were talking about their childhood again, sharing stories and jokes that only siblings could understand. Kate drifted off to sleep thinking about the family she and William had created together. Not the children they had never had, but the network of friends, neighbors, and loved ones who had become their family by choice. James, who called every week and visited every year. Mrs. Patterson, who had become like a sister. Their pastor, who had counseled them through difficult times. The young people William had mentored over the years who still stayed in touch. Their love had created ripples that had touched countless lives, and those ripples would continue long after both of them were gone. In a way, that was the greatest legacy anyone could hope for, to have loved so well and so generously that the world was better for their having been in it. Around midnight, Kate woke to find James gently shaking her shoulder. "Kate," he whispered, "I think you should come. William is asking for you." She threw on her robe and followed James to the living room, her heart racing. William was awake, but breathing with difficulty, his color pale in the lamplight. "What's wrong?" she asked, taking his hand. "Nothing's wrong," William said softly. "I just wanted to see you. I wanted to tell you again how much I love you." Kate sat down beside him, and James discreetly moved to the kitchen to give them privacy. Outside, the night was quiet except for the gentle rustling of leaves in their garden and the distant sound of a train whistle from across town. "I love you too," Kate said, kissing his forehead. "Are you in pain?" William shook his head slightly. "No pain, just tired, very tired." They sat together in the soft lamplight, holding hands and listening to each other breathe. Kate could feel something shifting in the air around them, a sense of approaching change that made her hold his hand even tighter. "Kate," William whispered, "promise me you'll remember the happy times most of all." "I promise," she whispered back. "Promise me you'll keep the garden growing. I promise. Promise me you'll find reasons to laugh again. I promise." William smiled peacefully and closed his eyes. "Good. That's good. Now sing to me, Katie. Sing our song." Kate's voice trembled as she began to sing in the sweet by and by, the hymn they had chosen for their wedding and had sung together countless times over the years. Her voice was soft and pure in the quiet room, filling the space with love and memory and hope. As she sang, she felt William's hand relax in hers, and she knew that their time together was drawing to its close. But for this moment, they were exactly where they belonged, together, surrounded by love, preparing to say the most difficult goodbye of their lives. The first light of dawn crept through the windows of their little house on Maple Street, painting everything in soft shades of pink and gold. Kate had been awake all night, holding William's hand and listening to the rhythm of his breathing grow slower and more irregular. James dozed fitfully in the corner chair, startling awake every few minutes to check on his brother. William's eyes fluttered open as the sun touched their garden, illuminating the roses that climbed along their fence and the small greenhouse where his orchids waited patiently for his return. For a moment, his gaze was clear and focused, taking in the scene beyond their window with a peaceful expression. "The garden looks beautiful this morning," he whispered, his voice barely audible. Kate followed his gaze to where the morning light made everything sparkle with dew. "It does. The roses have never been more beautiful." "That's because they know," William said softly. "They know how much we've loved them." James stirred in his chair and came to stand beside Kate, placing a gentle hand on her shoulder. The three of them sat in comfortable silence, watching the world wake up beyond their window. Birds were singing in the trees, and Mrs. Patterson's cat was making his morning rounds through the neighborhood. "James," William said, turning to look at his brother. "Take care of her for me." "You know I will," James replied, his voice thick with emotion. "And take care of yourself, too. Don't work so hard that you forget to live." James nodded, tears streaming down his face. "I love you, big brother. I love you too, little brother. Always have, always will." William closed his eyes again, seeming to gather his strength for what needed to come next. When he opened them again, he looked directly at Kate with all the love and tenderness of their 37 years together. "Katie," he whispered, "my beautiful, wonderful Katie." "I'm here," she said, leaning closer so he could see her face clearly. "Do you remember what I told you on our wedding day? About how I felt when I first saw you walking down the aisle?" Kate smiled through her tears. "You said your heart stopped, and then started again, beating just for me." "It's still beating just for you," William said. "It always will be, even when you can't hear it anymore." Kate kissed his hand, unable to speak past the emotion filling her throat. "Promise me something," William continued. "Anything. Promise me you'll dance again. Maybe not tomorrow or next month, but someday. Promise me you'll put on that blue dress I love and dance in the kitchen while you make coffee." Kate remembered all the times over the years when William had swept her into impromptu dances in their kitchen, spinning her around between the stove and the refrigerator while music played on their old radio. Those moments had been some of the purest joy of their life together. "I promise," she whispered, "and promise me you'll travel somewhere beautiful. Take that trip to Ireland we always talked about. See the green hills and the ocean and know that I'm seeing them with you. I promise. And promise me you'll let people help you. Don't try to carry everything alone." Kate looked at James, who nodded encouragingly. "I promise." William smiled, the same radiant smile that had won her heart so many years ago. "Good. That's my girl." The morning progressed quietly, with William drifting in and out of consciousness. Kate and James took turns sitting beside him, sharing memories and simply being present. Dr. Chun arrived around 10 o'clock, checked William's vitals, and spoke quietly with Kate about what to expect in the coming hours. "He's peaceful," Dr. Chun assured her. "His body is just gradually slowing down. This is exactly what we hoped for. No pain, no distress, just a natural transition surrounded by love." Around noon, William woke again and asked to see their wedding album. James brought it from the bookshelf, and they spent an hour looking through the pictures together. William smiled at each photo, commenting on how young and nervous they both looked, how beautiful Kate was in her mother's dress, how happy everyone seemed. "Look at this one," he said, pointing to a picture of them cutting their wedding cake. "You got frosting on my nose." "You got frosting everywhere," Kate laughed softly. "I was so embarrassed." "I wasn't. I thought it was perfect." Everything about that day was perfect. Their wedding cake had been a simple vanilla cake with buttercream frosting, made by Kate's Aunt Helen, who was known throughout the family for her baking skills. They had fed each other small bites, both trying to be neat and proper, but somehow frosting had ended up on both their faces, much to the delight of their guests. As the afternoon wore on, more friends began to arrive. Pastor Mitchell came and offered prayers, holding their hands and speaking words of comfort and hope. Mrs. Patterson brought a bouquet of roses from her own garden, arranging them where William could see their bright colors. Several of William's former employees stopped by, each wanting to say goodbye to a man who had been more than just a boss to them. Each visitor spoke quietly with William, sharing memories and expressing their gratitude for the ways he had touched their lives. Kate was amazed by the steady stream of people who came to pay their respects, each bringing stories she had never heard before about her husband's kindness and generosity. A young woman named Lisa, who had worked as William's secretary for 10 years, brought a photo of her wedding day where William had walked her down the aisle after her own father had passed away. He said every bride deserves someone special to give her away. Lisa shared through her tears. He was like a father to me. An elderly man named Frank told about how William had hired his unemployed son and trained him personally, even though the young man had struggled with addiction. Your husband believed in second chances, Frank said. My boy has been clean for 5 years now, all because Mr. Thompson saw something worth saving in him. By late afternoon, the stream of visitors had slowed, and William was clearly exhausted but content. He had seen the faces of the people he cared about, heard their stories, and felt their love surrounding him. That was good, he told Kate as they settled into evening quiet. I wanted to see everyone. They love you so much, Kate said. We all do. As the sun began to set, painting their garden in golden light, William asked Kate to open all the windows so they could hear the evening sounds of their neighborhood. The smell of roses drifted in on the gentle breeze, along with the sounds of children playing in nearby yards and the distant hum of cars on their street. This is how I want to remember it, William said softly. Home, with you surrounded by life. Kate sat beside him as darkness fell, holding his hand and listening to his breathing. James had fallen asleep in the corner chair, exhausted from the emotional day. The house was quiet except for the gentle tick of the clock on the mantel and the soft sounds of the evening outside their windows. Around 10 o'clock, William stirred and looked at Kate with sudden clarity. Katie, he said, his voice stronger than it had been all day. I need to tell you something important. What is it, my love? When I'm gone, and you miss me so much it hurts, I want you to come sit in the garden. Sit by the roses and close your eyes and remember all the times we worked there together. I'll be there with you, I promise. Kate nodded, tears flowing freely. And when you write your stories, write about love that lasts forever. Write about ordinary people who find extraordinary happiness together. Help people believe in love like ours. I will, Kate promised. William smiled peacefully. And Katie, don't be sad for too long. Grief is love with nowhere to go, but love always finds a way. Our love will live on in the garden, in your stories, in every life we've touched together. Death can't end what we've built together. As the night deepened, William's breathing became more labored. Kate could feel him slipping away, but his hand still held hers with gentle strength. Sing to me again, he whispered. Sing our song. Kate's voice was soft and pure in the quiet room as she began in the sweet by and by once more. As she sang about meeting on that beautiful shore where loved ones gather, she felt William's grip on her hand gradually relax. In the sweet by and by, we shall meet on that beautiful shore, she sang softly, her voice carrying all the love and hope of their life together. William's breathing became peaceful and shallow, and then, as Kate finished the last verse, he took one final, gentle breath and was still. Kate sat holding his hand for a long time, feeling the profound silence that followed. The clock still ticked on the mantel. The night sound still drifted through their windows, but something fundamental had changed. The love of her life, her partner in everything, her heart's companion for 37 years, was gone. But even in her grief, Kate felt something else, a deep gratitude for having been loved so completely and for having loved so fully in return. Their story hadn't ended with William's death. It had been transformed into something eternal, something that would live on in every rose that bloomed in their garden, every kindness they had shared with others, every moment of joy they had created together. James woke and came to sit beside her, wrapping his arm around her shoulders as they sat together in the peaceful quiet. Outside their window, the garden they had created with such love waited for morning, when the roses would open their petals to the sun once again. Kate knew that in the days to come, there would be arrangements to make and people to call and a new life to learn how to live. But tonight, she simply sat holding William's hand and feeling grateful for every single day they had been given together. Their love story had been quiet and ordinary and absolutely extraordinary all at once. And though this chapter was ending, Kate knew that love like theirs never really dies. It just takes on new forms, blooming again and again like the roses in their garden, eternal and beautiful and true. In the sweet by and by, they would indeed meet on that beautiful shore. But until then, Kate would carry their love forward, honoring the promises she had made, and living each day as a tribute to the man who had loved her so well and taught her that true love never ends. It only grows stronger with time. The quiet goodbye was complete, but their love would go on forever.